Brought to you by North Memorial Health, where customers are treated like family. That means a big smile when you walk in the door and making sure your visit is as pleasant as possible. It's just like your family treats you. Find your healthy family at northmemorial.com/family.
Welcome to another episode of the Access Vikings podcast. We're coming to you from U.S. Bank Stadium after the Minnesota Vikings lost to the Kevin Stefanski's Cleveland Browns, 14-7. A lot of the same themes came out of this loss as similar Vikings losses. The offensive line, running game, nowhere to be found. The offense, really nowhere to be found. 65 rushing yards, 7 points. And the Cleveland Browns just kind of ground the Vikings to a fine powder in the running game after that one. I'm joined here by Ben Gessling, Lavelle E. Neal of the Star Tribune. Lavelle, you wrote about that offensive line. What stood out to you watching Myles Garrett and company get after?
I'm going to remember, the thing I'm going to take away from this game is the drive. It was a thing of beauty. It was 7 runs, 7 passes, moved right down the field, 75 yards, touchdown. Even shook off a penalty. After that, it was a disaster because Cleveland decided to turn up the pressure, and the Vikings had no answer for it. Rashad Hill had some help from Tyler Conklin, which ended up being more of a detriment than actually a help, as Myles Garrett was able to break through like double teams to get pressure on Cousins, which was crazy. And then you had Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. And while he didn't have a big day statistically, Mike Zimmer, after the game was talking about how you have to account for both those game records when you try to face Cleveland. And then when you get those guys taken care of, and you got Malik Jackson, a defensive tackle who deflected 2 passes, had 1 hit, and I think he had 2 tackles as well. So it was just too much for this offensive line to handle, and now it's brought back to concerns that how productive can this group be? Can they block for the running game? And more importantly, can they keep the pocket clean for Kirk Cousins? Because when it's not clean, he starts dancing, and bad things happen when he dances.
Bad things happen. I like that line.
There's a lot you could say there. Bad things happen when Kirk Cousins dances.
I like that line. It brings back the touchdown dance where he's just kind of
like dad dance,
wobbling side to side. Bad things were happening then, even though they were scoring. Wasn't a whole lot of scoring going on here for the Vikings this time around, though, as Lavelle just broke down. Offensive line couldn't protect, couldn't open up holes for the running game. Ben, I think the image that sticks in my mind is at the very end, or second to last series, just before their final attempt. They have a 4th and 3. I think they were at the Browns' 33-yard line. They were knocking on the door. You got Dalvin Cook in the game, albeit hurt. And Garrett Bradbury gets driven back into Cousins' lap. Cousins gets sacked, turnover on downs right there. And it's like when you need a play from your quarterback and O-line, your first-round center gets driven back into you. I mean, that was just, to me, kind of epitomized the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reminder after all of the enthusiasm we saw them kind of derive from last week that when they are matched against a better front, they still have a lot of trouble matching up. And we saw them, they had a good day in Arizona. I think that probably was as much of a reason for optimism as last week was, and they certainly, I think, felt that way. But it tells you again that when you face teams with guys up front that you have to deal with, that you're going to lose a lot of these matchups. And it came down to that, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, we thought this game could be decided on both lines of scrimmage, and the Browns have an advantage on both of those. And that really showed up, I think, especially throughout the second half today. I think that was why we ended up with the score that we got.
And here's the thing, too. On the remaining schedule, they face the Chargers. They have a very good defensive front. The 49ers have a very good defensive front. I'm missing the third opponent there, but then they also have 2 games against the Bears, and the Bears' front 7 isn't shabby either. They've got to fix this.
You're talking about November?
Yes.
The Ravens and the Packers are the other 2, so
Ravens
not
Packers,
easy.
Yes. No. So, I mean, there's going to be issues here. They've got to get this fixed. They got to figure out why Max Protect doesn't work. And they got to figure out if Christian Darrisaw can get in a position to contribute. He was on the field for 1 play today, as you pointed out, the extra point try. And where Rashad Hill should be, and if Udo is good at right guard. I mean, there's a lot of things that got to get fixed because the offense is going to break down here because Cousins is not the type of that guy that can make plays with his feet. He can't move. He can't move the pocket for him. It's got to be clean. And if it's not, there's problems.
It does remind you that some of the stuff we saw in Arizona where he looks a little more mobile, that's just so fleeting with him, those moments. Because I remember in Arizona he had the 29-yard run. He did make some plays with his feet where he found bot time, but you can't rely on that. That can't be a game plan of, hey, Kirk, just avoid them. You got to find a way to actually give this guy clean platforms to throw. And the play action game, that resulted in his first interception of the season. He has a fake handoff, big play action boot, tries to hit Adam Thielen deep, and that gets undercut by a backup Browns corner who was starting for the rookie who was injured and couldn't play in this game. So to me, it wasn't just the run game and Cook being banged up, failing. As Lavelle, you talked about, it's also the fact that when that run game's not going, you're not getting much out of Kirk in that passing game. The one needs to set up the other, as coaches often talk about.
Complementary football, is that what we're talking about here?
But Kirk's not that guy, right, Ben? Like, we've never seen it. So I don't know how many times we can say it, but it seems a theme after Vikings losses is often how come Kirk couldn't overcome these other deficiencies in the offense. And to me, Kirk was the best quarterback out there. If only
I would agree.
Baker Mayfield was horrendous.
I don't see how you extend him to a massive contract right now. He's too inconsistent to rely. He had guys open. They should have scored 28 points at least today, because he missed OBJ on a goal route here, and OBJ had like 4 yards between him. I can't remember who the defensive back was, and
Harrison Smith.
It was Harry, yeah, and
It was a double move.
and the pass was like he didn't put enough air under it, and it came in too hot. And
Off the wrong shoulder,
and
too.
off the wrong shoulder. I mean, that's not the Baker Mayfield that deserves to have commercials. Let's go.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, Stefanski talked in the story that Mark Craig did this week after spending a few days in Cleveland about what he learned from Zimmer. I think one of the things you could learn from Zimmer, at least in terms of a cautionary tale, is you need to get the quarterback thing figured out. Whether it's you mess it up by tailoring yourself to a bad quarterback, or you mess it up by never really finding that guy, it's tough to overcome that. And the Vikings have been able to do a lot of that. But, yeah, today's another reminder of Cousins can only do so much, probably because of the way he plays and some of his own limitations. But I guess in the other sense of it, you probably would have had a lot of quarterbacks, if they're getting pressured like that would have had a lot of trouble. He's not going to be the guy that can create something out of nothing. But, just a lot of things that went wrong. And I think the point with Mayfield, though, is, if you decide that's your guy, you're betting a lot that what we saw today is going to improve.
Well, the one thing that Stefanski has to watch out, make sure he doesn't follow in the steps of McVay with the Rams, because he kept speaking highly of Goff, even though Goff had flaws, that Goff ended up getting big money from the Rams. And they ended up in the box with him, and they ended up trading him anyway to the Lions. So if Stefanski, if he thinks that Baker's not the guy, don't talk him up and look for a way to move him.
Yeah, it might help. I don't think Andrew Berry, the GM there, drafted Baker.
No,
so
that's the big difference.
You at least don't have
they
to.
didn't pick him.
Yeah, at least with Les Snead and in the Goff Rams situation, McVay had to talk up his GM's guy, whereas here Stefanski doesn't have to do that. But Baker's played so much better than this before. Baker said after the game, "I pride myself on being accurate." I don't know what the hell that was, which is a great quote, because that's exactly what we were all saying while watching him airmail some of these passes. There was one, Ben, you said right as it happened. Play action rollout, I think it was like a third down. He's got 3 options flooding to his right. And there were a couple guys open. He just misses them. One in the flat, one intermediate, one deep. 2 of those options were open. And he just kind of dances around and then takes a hit for like a gain of no yards or something.
Yeah,
like
I think he lost a yard on that play. It was a combination of not being willing to get rid of the ball in rhythm, and then when he tried to do it, just not being able to hit his target. I mean, that game, they threw deep 3 times. Basically, they get the ball back with like 6 minutes left after the Cousins pick, and they have 2 series where you can go for the dagger at any point. They tried, though you could have argued the dagger might have been just keep running the ball like you had in the second half. Mayfield took 3 deep shots, missed them all, and then the one to Beckham that we're talking about was the last of those 3. That game probably should have been over sooner than it was, and he certainly gave them plenty of chances to get back in it.
So there's 2 things I wanted to ask you guys about. One, off of that, talking about Mayfield and the Browns offense, how well or not well do you think the defense really played, considering some of the opportunities that were missed and the fact that really up until Kareem Hunt's 33-yard run on a 3rd and 20, which is just one of the worst defensive plays you'll see in the Vikings this year. Before that, they had done at least somewhat well holding those 2 guys down. It was like 3 yards a carry. And it really had to be this kind of death by 1,000 cuts, just grind it out kind of game where I think it was a 9-minute drive they capped with a touchdown in the second quarter.
The 18-play drive, yeah.
Yeah, they made it somewhat difficult on the Browns, at least at first, and then it just seemed to the floodgates seemed to kind of open on them. So defensively, Ben, what did you think about what they put out there today?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they did some good things in terms of stopping the run for a lot of the first half, and they got enough pressure on Mayfield against a pretty good line. Now, Browns lost their left tackle. Jedrick Willis got carted off during the middle of the game, but I thought Everson Griffin was good again. I thought Danielle Hunter was good. I mean, that tandem looks like what we've seen a lot in the past. And I thought for a lot of it, Pierce and Tomlinson played fairly well. Now, Pierce leaves again with an elbow injury. We'll have to see how that shakes out. But I thought they did a lot of good things. The thing that's come up now 3 times in 4 weeks is getting scored on before the half. And they did it on the long drive that we're talking about. Then they, of course, weren't able to do anything. They went 3 and out, and then they gave up a field goal after turning the ball back over. And then we had the goofy thing with the Sheldon Richardson calling a timeout because he thought there were 12 men on the field. So you give up 11 points in about, I think it was a minute 19, and in a game where you score 7, that's your game right there. So giving up those kinds of points before halftime, and really, I mean, the Browns had the second half kickoff too. They had the chance to do more. So that has become a big problem, and I think that's a lot of you got 3 losses by 7 points or less. Giving up points before halftime is certain to become a big part of the reason why they're 1-3.
I think their run defense is okay. I just think most teams are going to have issues trying to stop this particular running game when you have Chubb and Kareem Hunt running at you.
And that line's really good.
Yeah, and then the first 3 opponents each had a 100-yard receiver against the Vikings. I'm guessing this is the first game that did not give up 100 yards to a single receiver. But
Correct.
they should have. So that's a concern going forward. What's going on where a receiver's having big days against the Vikings? They're a better quarterback away from that happening again today.
Yeah, and Bashaud Breeland is dealing with an illness. That's a legitimate thing that did cause him to miss practice on Thursday of this week, but he was healthy, suited up for the game. Mike Zimmer and the Vikings used that as an excuse to say that's why he left the game. But if you go back and look at it, Breeland's last snap was a 21-yard completion to Higgins to convert a 3rd and 10, in which Breeland was the closest defender to that pass. And then he got yanked for Cameron Dantzler. So to me, that looked like a performance pull, and maybe they thought, he's sick, and that's why he's giving up a big play. But this is consistently happening.
Somebody was sick.
With
Yes.
with Bashaud Breeland. This is consistently happening with him. And so that's a concern where if you're already having Dantzler put in there, a guy whom the Vikings coaching staff has told you over and over they don't really trust that much, at least at this point of his career, they're still looking for that answer opposite Patrick Peterson. Ben, what did you make of Zimmer kind of basically trying to put out there that, hey, this is still a good team. Even Kevin Stefanski told me so before the game.
It's an interesting way to go about it because Mike Zimmer, as we all know, is a Bill Parcells disciple. The truism that Bill Parcells is associated with more than anything else is you are what your record says you are. And you can talk all you want about how you're close, but I went and looked this up after the game. They are the 6th team, I believe, since 2016 or so. Just kind of looking at a snapshot of recent history because this happens somewhat. They've outscored opponents through 4 games, and they're 1-3. They're the 6th team to do that. None of the previous 5 have made the playoffs. So at some point it tells you if you're not winning close games, being close is not enough to validate you as a good team. In a league where all of these games come down to 1 or 2 possessions, we've seen the stats for the first few weeks of the season. If you're not winning a lot of those games, you're not going to be able to say at the end of the season we're a good team because the record's going to say otherwise.
Yeah, Lavelle, do you make anything of that where the Vikings are 1-3 and Mike Zimmer would like to remind you that, hey, we still have chances, we're a good team. But as Ben said, when you lose 3 close games, it probably says more about you than the randomness of football.
It also says that we look at stats too much because I looked that stat up and we look at this too much.
I was really surprised by his demeanor after the game. I thought he'd be grumpier. I thought he'd be a little more crass. Maybe more, even more acerbic like he's been in the past. But it was almost like we're just that close. We're just that close away. And I wasn't prepared to see that side of Zimmer after a game
Saturdays
like
around here.
when they just coughed up just 7 points at home in front of these fans, and then they're trying to say we're not that far away. So I thought that was strange. It's like he's trying to make sure things don't unravel even more on him. So I don't know if that's damage control. I don't know if he just doesn't want to face the reality right now. He just want to try to speak it into existence that they're a playoff caliber team, even though the record says they're not. So let's see how he goes this week as he prepares for. Well, here's the thing: the slump buster's coming. You know,
yeah, the Get Right game is on the way.
You know, just when things couldn't be any bit worse. Here come the Detroit Lions. So now he's going to be, he could be happy all week now and then go and beat the Lions because the Bears won today with, Justin Fields still learning how to walk and chew gum at the same time. He has a chance of being 2-3 after next week, and maybe he's looking forward to that already.
Then you do that. You win on the road. You're 3-3. Now Carolina, that may be a tough opponent, but if you do that, you're 3-3 going to the bye week, and you could say, hey, everything's fine.
Well, McCaffrey won't be back for that game, will he?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean, a hamstring, it would seem like a tight turnaround, so possibly not. But, yeah, I mean, the post-game comments to me were one of two things. It was either for an audience of two that has now watched its team start 1-3 for the second straight year. And
are they here? Are they at every game?
They're typically here. Yeah, I think they're at most games, but they were here. Was that this week or last week that they were in the house?
They were
during
here for
practice.
Kevin
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
they were here for Kevin Williams. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I think they've been here both weeks now.
We're talking about the owners, in case anybody hasn't figured that out.
I think Mark and Ziggy Wolf have been here both home games.
Yes, Mark and Ziggy Wolf is the audience of two I'm referring to, or it's for an audience of 53, trying to continue the message that he apparently gave to players in the locker room to say, don't bail on this thing because we're not that far away. And that mentality of, well, if we're not going to be that good, I'm going to start trying to get mine and make business decisions and all that kind of stuff. He might be trying to fight against a little bit of that too, especially for players that have now been through this twice in back-to-back years, these kind of slow starts. But
a lot of guys on one-year deals.
Yeah, a lot of guys on one-year deals. Yes, there's a lot of that. So it could be that too. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting tack because he basically said, I've been coaching 27 years. I know what good football looks like. I know what bad football looks like. Trust my judgment that this is a good team and don't believe what the numbers or your lying eyes tell you.
So the Vikings avoid being in the NFC North cellar because the aforementioned Detroit Lions are 0-4. Vikings 1-3. Bears 2-2. Packers seem to be on pace to go 4 and wait.
They won.
Yeah.
They're 3-1.
So they're 3-1.
Yep.
So yeah, one game separating every team.
They should
in the
be
NFC
2-2.
North.
I can't believe they pulled that victory out of their rear ends.
Yeah.
Was it last week when they drove down the field late? Golly.
Quarterback difference right there. I mean, if Vikings fans or fans of any other team in the division are looking for a silver lining, it's that by all accounts, the quarterback difference the Packers have enjoyed for 30 years may not be there next year.
Maybe the last dance is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's a flawed comparison because the last dance was conducted by a team that wins championships, not loses NFC title games. But
I thought Brian Gutekunst was Jerry Krause.
He did go with that. This parallel kind of breaks down. It
really does.
You gotta.
But they printed T-shirts and everything. There's T-shirts about it and everything.
Oh, it'll be fun when they come to town here in a few weeks.
We don't think this is the last time Kirk Cousins is going to be dancing for the Vikings in the backfield. We will talk to you guys next week after. Well, actually, we'll set up the Lions game. They're coming into town to U.S. Bank Stadium noon next Sunday. Slump Busters.
Watch out for your kneecaps,
as Lavelle called them. And watch out, Dan Campbell's looking to eat some kneecaps. Please check out all of our work at StarTribune.com.
Maybe you should get off the podcast.